We had the first ever triple header on the Big Ten Network this past weekend, and it was awesome. And I really hope they do this again. And it started out with the biggest match of the weekend of Penn State versus Michigan. But the first bout in the duel was kind of a dud. They started at 157 pounds with Levi Haines versus Will Luan, and neither wrestler was very aggressive. In fact, within the first period, they both got hit with a stall call at the same time. And quite honestly, I think it was deserved because nobody had really taken a committed shot. They were just kind of hand fighting and circling in the center of the mat. And I know there was some controversy around those stall calls because at the end of the third period, with only 20 seconds left to go in the match, Will Luan gets hit with his second stall call and gives a point to Levi Haines, which ends up costing him the match. So Levi Haines is your winner based off a stall call point. And you never like to see a match decided that way, but I don't think Will Luan really has much of an argument here because he didn't really even touch Levi Haines' legs the entire match. I have always been an avid supporter of more stall calls in wrestling, so you're not going to hear me complain about a stall call very often. Now I know Levi Haines wasn't super aggressive either, but he did have 3 or 4 really committed attacks throughout the match, and I think that's what ultimately swayed the ref to give Will Luan that stall call with 20 seconds left to go. So the lesson is, if you don't want to lose off a stall call point, be aggressive, get out there, wrestle, and attack. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The wrestler that's attacking, being aggressive, being more offensive is more often than not going to win the match. And the next match was 165 pounds, and Mitchell Messenbrink is freaking good. I mean, Cam Amin did not have any answers for him. He could not get his offense going at all, and Mitchell Messenbrink kind of pushed him or walked him around the match for most of the 7 minutes. So it's very clear to me at this point that Mitchell Messenbrink is one of the top 4 guys at the weight class with Keegan O'Toole, David Carr, and I'm going to go ahead and include Dean Hamidi. And then at 174 pounds, we didn't get the match we wanted to see of Carter Storace versus Shane Griffith because apparently Carter had a minor injury, which was probably pretty frustrating for Carter because if he wants to win the Hodge Trophy, he's got to wrestle matches. I mean, we're over halfway through the season and he's only wrestled 6 times. And he only has 1 win of a guy ranked in the top 10. And Aaron Brooks, while he has 8 matches on the year, all of those wins are guys over who probably aren't going to qualify for the national tournament. And so while they're getting tech falls and pins, they really need to get wins over top 10, top 5 guys. Now, I'll know they'll have those big matches at the Big Ten tournament and the national championships, but if they end the year with 14 matches, 16 matches, I don't know if that's going to be enough for them to win the Hodge Trophy. So as of right now, I think Keegan O'Toole's the favorite to win the Hodge, but I do have a dark horse of winning the Hodge, and that's Mitchell Messenbrink. He's wrestled 15, 16 matches so far, undefeated, a very high bonus rate, and if he can go undefeated at this 165-pound weight class, beating David Carr and Keegan O'Toole, he might win the Hodge Trophy. Now, I said it before, I'm not going to pick him yet to win the title over Keegan or David, probably until I see it, but it certainly is interesting to see him beat All-Americans by major decision. If he keeps that going, he's got to be in the conversation. At 184 pounds, we saw Bernie Truax versus Jaden Bullock. And at the beginning of the year, I thought Bernie Truax and Parker Keckeisen were the clear 1 and 2 at 184 pounds. But with Bernie's last loss to Trey Munoz and this close match to Jaden Bullock, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think Bernie's kind of fallen back to the fold between the 2 and 5 ranked guys. He certainly could be beatable in that quarterfinals or semifinals matches. And then Jaden Bullock, he wasn't even supposed to be the starter this year, and he's wrestling close matches with guys who are title contenders and multiple time All-Americans. What an impressive development we've seen from him throughout this season. And I want to go ahead and jump to 285 pounds or heavyweight with Greg Kurtvliet versus Lucas Davison. This was another marquee matchup, and Greg is just a freaking animal. He is so good, but for whatever reason, I'm still hesitant to kind of deem him the big time huge favorite at this weight class. Younger Bastida still intrigues me. I'm still interested to see that matchup. And then Colton Schultz, while I think Greg is a favorite there, the pure size of Colton Schultz and his stylistic matchup of being a Greco-Roman wrestler is always interesting to me, and I think could cause some problems. Yes, Greg's going to be the favorite, but I still think these guys could shake things up and make things interesting with him at the national tournament. And we circle back around to 125 pounds with Braden Davis getting a big win over D'Agostino. And Braden Davis's season this year is the prime example of why it is so hard to beat Penn State. Because Braden Davis wasn't projected to be the starter. He was probably going to redshirt. He was ranked 28th or so in the big board coming out of high school. And he looks to be a title contender at this weight class. Now, 125 pounds is a little bit different this year, but that just doesn't happen. A true freshman ranked 28th on the big board coming out of high school just is not supposed to compete for a national title. True freshmen almost never even make the podium, much less win a national title. And so to be in that conversation is just another reason, another point of why it's so difficult to beat Penn State, because the guys just get better and better. And then that takes us to 133 pounds. This is the last match I want to talk about in this duel, and in my opinion, was probably the most entertaining. And Dylan Ragusin pulls off the win over Aaron Nagao. And can anybody tell me the main difference here between Dylan Ragusin and some of the other Michigan wrestlers that didn't end up getting a win? Well, the answer is he was more aggressive. He was getting to the legs of Aaron Nagao. He was taking shots. He was mixing it up, and ultimately was rewarded with a win and a pin over Aaron Nagao of Penn State. And then the second match of the triple header was Iowa versus Purdue. And the marquee match was Drake Ayala versus Matt Ramos. And let me tell you, this was a fun match to watch. Both guys were looking for their offense. Both guys got takedowns. They were mixing it up. Ultimately, Matt Ramos comes out with the victory. And Matt Ramos has kind of had one of those seasons where just when you're out, he just pulls you back in. He starts off slow. We're not at the end of the season yet, but we're getting close. We're at the end of January, so we're 6 weeks away from really getting into postseason. And he's peaking and performing at the right point. And then the third match of the triple header was Nebraska versus Minnesota. And again, the marquee match, in my opinion, was 125 pounds. Patrick McKee versus Caleb Smith. And Patrick McKee, what a funky wrestler. I mean, he just laid it on Caleb Smith in the weirdest way possible. Yanni Diakomahalis even stated this about the match, it was just a kooky match, because it really was. Caleb Smith would be deep on a shot, and somehow Patrick McKee would turn it in his favor. It was somewhat Bryce Andonian-esque of a match. So it was pretty entertaining, even though it was kind of a lopsided score. And there was a couple notable results at 157 pounds throughout the weekend. Peyton Robb is on a 3-match losing streak. He loses to Jared Franick. He loses to Michael Blockus. And then also he got pinned by Joey Blaze. And so Peyton Robb, he's obviously off right now. I was really high on Peyton Robb, always has been, but losses matter, right? You can't just throw out losses like they don't mean anything. So losses matter. This probably means he's coming back to the fold. He's going to have to figure something out if he's going to try to win a Big Ten title or even a national title at the end come March. And then Chase Aldate was this close to beating Levi Haynes. And in that second tiebreaker with 7 seconds to go, it kind of looked like Saldate was just holding on instead of wrestling through the position. Now, I know Saldate couldn't give up an escape point there, else he would have lost. He needed just to wrestle through the position. It just looked like he was squeezing and holding on for dear life, while Levi Haynes is trying to wrestle through the position. And ultimately, he got the reversal. But based off these results, it does feel like 157 pounds kind of has a 125-pound-esque feel. Now, I know Levi Haynes hasn't lost. He's still undefeated. But dating back to the Oregon State match with this Will Lewan match and Chase Saldate match, he's won all three, but Levi Haynes is vulnerable. And then there's a lot of ups and downs and wins and losses between the other 157 pounds. So come the national tournament, 157 pounds could look very similar to 125, where a lot of guys could go really deep in the tournament and win the bracket. And a lot of guys ranked pretty high could lose early. So this is going to be a fun weight class all the way through March. And then the last duel I want to talk about is Little Rock beating Arizona State. If there is ever an argument to go to a dual team national title, it's this duel. Little Rock beats Arizona State. Now, Arizona State at the national tournament is going to throttle Little Rock. They're going to be so much higher. They have Colton Schultz, Ja'Cory Teamer, Richie Figueroa, Kyle Parco. They're going to be in the top 10. And Little Rock might be lucky to get in the top 25. I think Nasir Bailey could be an All-American, but outside of that, that's probably it. So you're going to have huge swings in performance with Arizona State and Little Rock at the national tournament. But again, Little Rock beats Arizona State in a duel. And that just goes to show the difference between a dual team versus a tournament team. Tournament team, you can score a lot of points with 4 wrestlers. A dual team, you got to be stacked from top to bottom. Arizona State obviously has some holes, and Little Rock just has quality guys who aren't going to be on the All-American podium, but they have quality guys that can win matches from top to bottom. That's it for this week. Subscribe.